What's up, vapors? Thanks for checking out Daily Vape TV. My name is Nick, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Flawless AF RDA. Alright guys, so this is going to be a bit of a quick one for you today. We've got the Flawless AF, or Flawless as RDA to show you, and this is an interesting one because it totally flew under my radar. I really didn't hear anything about this thing until I got it in for this video, and I gotta say, I am pretty impressed by it. I will say that this is kind of their latest iteration of the Tugboat series. I know it's not an official Tugboat kind of product, but it does have the Tugboat logo on the back, as you'll see there. But with this one, it's just an interesting two-post design. You'll see in the close-up section what exactly I'm talking about, but anyways, let's get this video going. So before we get started with this video, I do have to state my intent by saying that I did receive this product for free from the manufacturer for the purpose of doing this video. However, it has no monetary value to me, which means my opinions on it will remain honest and unbiased, of course, as always. With that being said, I'd like to give a huge shout out to JT from Flawless for sending this my way. I really do appreciate, the care package, man. Seriously, thank you. So taking a look at their website, they have 8 different color options to choose from. You have stainless steel, red pearl, white pearl, blue pearl, gray pearl, black pearl, purple pearl, and maroon pearl. So lots of these pearl colors, and what they mean by pearl is actually kind of like a nice sparkly outer coating on the outside of the actual top cap. So very cool looking, very different. You don't really see this kind of color scheme that often on an RDA, so I can definitely appreciate that. So the price on this one is $85, which is a bit steep if you ask me, but this is going to be one of those RDAs for the very serious builder, someone that really wants that kind of look to their RDA, or if they really like the build deck or the post setup or the airflow or whatever, people are going to go after this one. However, I feel like the mainstream kind of vapor, the average vapor, will just kind of overlook this one completely and go with something a little bit cheaper. But with that being said, if you want to get one of these for yourself, make sure you check out the links down there in the description. That's where I'm going to have them for you guys. In any case, let's go ahead and dive down to the close-up view and take a better look at this thing. Well, alright guys, here is the Flawless AF RDA in all its close-up glory, so let's quickly go over some of the specs, because to be honest, there's not a whole heck of a lot to talk about here. So, with that, it is 24 millimeters in diameter. It does have a copper center post that does stick out quite a bit. I would definitely say this thing is hybrid safe. As you can see, my serial number is 34. It has the Tugboat logo and USA written on the other side there, which makes me believe that this thing was made in the US, which is awesome. Yay! So there you go. The air holes you can see on this side here, they are obviously dual airflow on both sides, and I believe they're either 3 or 4 millimeters per hole. It's hard to tell, but it looks a little bit bigger than some of the other RDAs that I have with 3 millimeters, so that kind of leads me to believe they're a tiny bit bigger, maybe 3.5. But that's just an educated guess because that information is not available on their website. So with that, it has the lovely Tugboat engraving on this side here. As you can see here, flawless as fuck. Alright, so let's just throw this thing on the hexome real quick so we can take a look at the build deck. So first and foremost, as you can see here from the top, it has these 4 screw heads that are flat head screws, and they're kind of recessed down. Once you start tightening down on these screw heads, they go below the surface of the actual blocks themselves, which is kind of a nice touch because it makes it so that it doesn't slip out quite as much. I've never really had an issue building on this thing at all, which is just great for me because I tend to be a little bit clumsy. But anyways, taking a look at the actual posts, very unique and cool looking design as far as the posts are concerned. Kind of has these like rectangular slots, and the 4 separate screws allow you to either tighten down on each individual wire, or if you have a big flat build, then you can pinch them both down, kind of like a mixture between the Goon and the Twisted Messes squared. So very unique and cool looking build deck there. I really do like it, and yeah, the nice deep juice well as well there. So pretty sure this is at least 6 millimeters, if not a little bit deeper. So plenty of room for wicking material and everything else there. As you can see on the bottom here, it has dual O-rings to keep your cap on nice and tight. Absolutely zero issues keeping the cap on with this thing here. I can actually lift my hexome up just by the top cap, and it's going to hold really nice and snug. So with that, very well designed in my opinion. Let's try to take out the airflow section. Alright, it's in there pretty good, but there we go. We have the airflow section. You have all the different holes. You can choose from single or dual coil mode there. Now, mine only has one O-ring on the top cap. I don't know if you guys can see that. Mine has one O-ring here, but it has a slot right there for another O-ring. I'm not sure if I broke it, lost it, it didn't come with one, or what. But for some reason, mine only has one O-ring, and even with one O-ring, it tends to be a pain in the ass to actually take this thing out. So I just try to line it up and leave it in one spot. So, just something to talk about there, I guess. So obviously this isn't the tip that originally comes with this device. This is a Gator board tip that I got in Tampa. I just walked up to the booth and he grabbed my mod and started making me a tip for it. So I don't have the original tip. However, it is just a normal black Delrin type of tip. Really nothing special there, but this one is pretty cool. So thanks, Gator board. Really do appreciate that. It is kind of an oddball size, which is kind of disappointing because I was hoping I would be able to use my Kennedy and Goon tips on it, but unfortunately I am not able to do that. So that's really all I had to talk about in this close-up section, so let's go back to the main screen, have a quick vape on this thing, and we'll talk about it some more. Alright guys, so it's time to talk about the pros and cons of this Flawless AF RDA. Let's start it off today with the pros, and my first pro is that it's a builder's dream RDA. This thing is going to be great for the very serious builder, someone that builds a lot of the wider coils. I'm talking about frame staples or multi-core fused Claptons or multi-core aliens, things that have really wide, flat surface areas to them. That is going to be the perfect type of coil to build in this device here. With that being said, it does kind of have an issue, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But with that being said, yeah, the absolute serious, dedicated, hardcore builders are going to love this thing. The post setup is very unique and very different, and it's just something you don't really see every day. So the way I like to kind of compare it, it's basically if the Twisted Messes V2 and the Goon had a baby, this is what would come out, the Flawless AF RDA. And my second pro today is that the screw heads on this thing are absolutely impeccable. I love the fact that they don't use Phillips heads or Allen heads. These are flat-headed screws, and they're kind of like grub screws as well because they're slightly recessed into the actual post themselves, and I love that because there's very little chance that your screwdriver is going to slip, skip, or strip out a screw, and that is just perfect for me because personally I'm very OCD about how tight my wire, how tight my coils are inside the posts, and this way I can really crank down hard on these things and I have no fear that anything is going to break off or strip. And my third pro today is the juice well is nice and deep, which is great for someone like me because I like using a little bit more wicking material so that I can drip less often, and that is exactly what you get with this thing here. Normally I get about 5-6 puffs in and I have to drip. With this one here, you're looking at about 10 puffs as long as you wick it just right. So with that, yeah, I absolutely love the fact that it's a little bit more convenient and a little bit more room inside the deck as well. If you want to, maybe do a stacked quad coil or something like that, you absolutely can because you have a lot of vertical space to build in as well. So that being said, the juice well is nice and deep, lots of room for wicking material, and you drip less often. And my fourth and final pro for this device is the build quality is amazing. Now, that doesn't really surprise me all that much because I've been dealing with Flawless since the beginning, and they've always had really good rock solid devices from the Tugboat V1, Tugboat V2, I've even had a Production Addy, a Dinghy, all the way down the line until you get to this one here, and they've all been really well built, rock solid devices, and it's flawless. I mean, what can you say? They've had one of the most iconic RDAs ever made, which is the Tugboat, and now you have this thing here, which doesn't surprise me that it's built really well. Alright guys, so moving on to some cons, my first con is actually something we touched upon in the pros section, which is building on this thing. Now, like I said, this thing is more meant for the bigger, wider, flatter builds and not round wire. If you're trying to do a regular round wire build on this thing, you're going to have a bad time because it's really not meant for that. You can tell by the lack of separation of the two post holes that it's kind of meant for something a little bit bigger, wider, more complicated, and not just your standard, 24 gauge build or something like that. bad. So if you're planning on getting one of these things and you don't know how to build complicated coils, at the very least, fuse Claptons, I would probably just avoid this one altogether because you're going to have a bad time building it and you're probably going to end up resenting it. And my second con today is the non-standard drip tip that it comes with. Unfortunately, this thing only fits its own tips. I tried all my other tips on this thing and nothing worked. I tried the Roughneck V2, the Kennedy Goon tips, TF V8, 510, absolutely nothing else fit. It's actually a little bit smaller than the Kennedy tips, which I was kind of surprised at. It looks almost like it would fit, but it just doesn't quite make it in there. So you're left with what they give you, or you can get one custom made like this one here by Gatorboard. And my third con today is the noisy airflow. This thing is definitely one of the noisiest RDAs that I own, and I don't know why. It's got this kind of standard tugboat sized holes and everything else. The setup is pretty much the same as something like the Tugboat V2, maybe even a little bit more airflow. However, it is very, very annoyingly noisy. So with that, just have a listen real quick. It's definitely up there in the decibel level as far as I'm concerned, especially comparing that to a lot of the other atomizers that I own. It's just kind of loud and annoying and kind of gets on my nerves. And my fourth and final con for this device is the price. And yeah, I'm going to have to bitch about the price because 85 bucks is a little bit steep. And I'm not positive, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe this thing is made in the USA. And if that's the case, then yeah, I can kind of rationalize that price a little bit more. However, it's just really tough to compete in this market nowadays with so many very good quality RDAs that even are made in China coming out for around 50, 60 bucks. So with that, it is a bit on the pricier side, but as long as they honor their warranties and they take care of their product and their actual brand name, then I think that's okay, but I think it's still a little bit high for what you're getting for your money. So I can hear you all asking me already, is this thing worth the price? Is it worth 85 bucks? Would I go out of my way to purchase one if I didn't get this one for review? And I'm gonna have to say no to this one. And it kind of pains me to say that because I've always loved the Flawless series of devices. I've really loved their RDAs, and this one just doesn't really do anything for me. I'm not that type of builder that would require such wide post holes. I mean, I love the screws, I love the build quality. There's a lot of things I do like about this RDA, but comparing it to something that might be a little bit cheaper, yeah, I don't know. I just couldn't see myself spending 85 bucks on it. But that's just me personally, you know. For anyone out there that can build a 10-core fuse Clapton, staggered, staple, whatever, then definitely give this thing a look. I think it's definitely worth it for someone that has that kind of skill level and ability, but for me personally, just doesn't do anything. So with that, if you want to pick one of these up for yourself, make sure you check out the links I've got down there in the description. So that about does it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe for more videos just like this. Don't forget you can click that notification bell right next to the subscribe button if you want to be alerted whenever I upload videos. Also, leave me some comments in the box below. I'd love to hear your thoughts all about the Flawless AF RDA or anything else you guys want to discuss. Also, check out the advocacy and my social media links right down there in the description. You can also pick yourself up a Daily Vape TV t-shirt. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and as always, vape on!